All right, hello and welcome everyone. We are getting started on time, but we're just going to give people a couple more minutes to come in and get settled. As we get settled in, I'll give you a brief overview of what we've been up to at Virtual Coffee. The background is we started as a once a week Zoom chat in April of 2020. And what's happened is we've grown into a community of developers at all stages of the journey. We're meeting, mentoring, hosting events like this one, and most importantly, making friends. Our mission is to form community, allow room for growth and mentorship at all levels, and to provide a safe space for everyone interested in tech. To find our code of conduct, events, or to learn more, you can check out our website, virtualcoffee.io. Last month, we wrapped up Hacktoberfest, and we're really excited to be doing these lightning talks today. We've got some great things planned for everyone. We're also working on a monthly challenge, and we've all been blogging in November, and we're trying to hit a goal of 50,000 words as a group. So let these talks be some inspiration for some more blog posts because we have some words to make up. We are really glad to have you all here with us today, and I especially want to thank our speakers for being here. Today's event will be live streamed, recorded, and posted online. Because the lightning talks are an introduction to a topic, and here at Virtual Coffee, this is a really great way to ease into speaking or to gauge interest for whether or not you want to develop this into a larger talk or a brown bag topic for our members. But we won't be taking questions as part of this event, not live ones anyway. You can put any comments in the event chat channel in our Slack. Feel free to add questions there, comments, or just give some general positivity and thank our speakers. Let's see, I am very excited about our talks, and I am going to be introducing our first speaker. So our first speaker is Rahat, and he is going to be talking about prioritizing mental health during the job search. He has not only is he a web developer, but he's also a blogger, a writer, a rapper, and a Pokemon master. He also has a podcast as well. So if you want to, you can check him out. Check him out on dev.to. And we will bring him in just 1 second. Me 1 second to make sure we've got this all. Oops. Set up here.
Hey.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for being our very first speaker.
Yeah.
Ironing out all of these little things. So we're very excited to hear your talk. If you want to go ahead and share your screen, I will jump off and you can get started.
Cool. Okay, is it up?
Yeah, everything looks great.
Okay, cool. All right. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, the leadership team for having me do this talk. Really love doing talks on mental health. So yeah, this talk is called Prioritizing Mental Health During the Job Search. I think a lot of people can probably relate to this a little bit and might be useful for some people. Before we get into, I guess, the talk itself, I guess a little bit about me. I'm Rahat Chaudhry. I'm a software engineer in American Express. I'm also a teaching assistant at a full stack coding bootcamp, my Trilogy education. Mental health advocate. I do a lot of these kind of talks for different conferences, meetups on mental health and tech. I'm also the founder of a mental health startup called Whimzer, which I'm hoping to formally announce in a little while. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Rahat Codes. Also on LinkedIn, Rahat C. I'm happy to always chat about anything. So I'm going to ask you all a series of questions, just yes or no. So if y'all can just like put it in the chat. Do you need glasses or contacts to help you see? It might be a weird question to ask, but I think hopefully as we kind of go through, you might see exactly why I'm asking the question. But yeah, so first one is, do you need glasses or contacts to help you see? The second question, oh no, okay. So I'm seeing some yeses. If yes, has anyone ever told you to try and see harder? So that's probably a pretty weird thing for someone to say. It's pretty messed up because, like, you know, you're wearing glasses, you need glasses to see. And it seems like a no, I think. So I would hope that you've never been asked this. It's pretty terrible to probably hear something like that. But I'd like to make sort of a connection between, like, you know, I need glasses to see harder versus like maybe, you know, I'm going through depression or another type of mental illness and, you know, I need help. And people are trying to tell me, like, you know, why don't you try to, I don't know, feel more happy or, you know, do something else that, you know, just gets you out of that fuck, as if like you have a choice. Here's another question. Are you comfortable taking a day off of work or class due to a physical illness? A lot of people are or kind of aren't. I think it, like for me, I guess coming from like an immigrant background and seeing like my dad like never take a day off of work, I always thought like, no, I probably shouldn't do that. Just coming from like that type of background, I always felt weird taking off for like a physical illness. A lot of people I've seen don't have that fear, but basically, you know, it depends on your comfort level. The last question, are you comfortable taking a day off of work or class to take care of your mental health? This is usually probably a no, because people aren't comfortable saying that they have, you know, some type of mental health issue they're going through. Or maybe some people, like me included, I've lied about having like a physical illness to take a mental health day. So I think one of the first things we really need to do is figure out how we can talk about this type of thing, both, you know, in a work setting, in a class setting, and in general. So why exactly did I ask these questions? I kind of alluded to it before of like, you know, we talk a lot about physical illnesses. We might be more, you know, comfortable with talking about, you know, I'm sick, have a cold, have the flu, whatever. Maybe not the flu because of what's going on now, but like we kind of, it's kind of okay to talk about these things, but it's for a lot of reasons. Many people don't consider it okay to talk about your mental health. A reason for you to just sit back, relax, and like take a day off from applying to jobs or, you know, just working and doing, you know, whatever you're doing at work. So I have this statistic up here, 20%. This is the percentage of people in 2016 who suffered from a mental illness while on the job. That's quite a lot of people. And I imagine now in 2020, it's probably a lot more. Me personally, I am one of these 20%. So I suffer from major depression as well as social anxiety. I take medication for both of these things, and I see a therapist once a month, twice a month now. So, you know, people like me and maybe people like you are, you know, around us. You're definitely not alone. And that's one of the biggest things I hope people can get away from these type of talks is that, like, we're usually not suffering alone. We're usually suffering in silence. So onto like the specific thing I want to talk about for today, which is mental health and the actual job hunt. Job hunting is a terribly lonely thing. It can be a terribly lonely thing, very frustrating. And if you're doing some applications, you're probably pretty familiar with this timeline of like first year, maybe networking, talking to people, sending a lot of, applications into the void, or maybe getting some referrals, and then boom, you get some automated rejections, right? Then eventually maybe you'll get some phone screens, some interviews, and then especially this year, you may not get an offer. You might get an offer resigned due to the pandemic, and in some cases, people get an offer. So we definitely want to get to that last part of the timeline of getting an offer, but there's stuff that we can do kind of in the middle, in between these things, to make it a little bit easier. We have to sort of normalize adding self-care to this timeline. So I've got a little bit of a revised timeline here that might make it a little bit easier to deal with the whole job searching. So you start with the applications, and then, maybe spend some time with friends, spend some time with family, via Zoom or in a socially distanced way. And, when those automatic rejections come, and unfortunately a lot of them may come, and you have someone to turn to, to talk about some of the frustrations. You have, a support group that you can reach out to. And then, another thing that I love doing to kind of like get through this timeline a little bit more, because a lot of this time is really just waiting, is doing something we love. Me personally, I love hip hop. I love making hip hop. I love listening to hip hop. I love video games. And those are some things that I just enjoy doing. When in between these things. I'm currently in a job search, so I play a lot of hip hop really loudly and just get away from the world, and it helps just to deal with the whole waiting game. Then you get your phone screens and interviews as usual, and then another thing that I think is really helpful, and I think a lot of y'all are doing it since you're in virtual coffee, is like networking and building with online communities. And it's great just to like have other people going through the same type of thing as you who understand. So like, just being in the community like this is awesome. I think for like your mental health, because you have that support system of people who know exactly what you're going through. So you'll see a whole bunch of words like materialize. This is like my favorite effect on this slide. I always use this effect. But these are just like some things that happen from like burnout. When you're going through the job search and going application after application, not taking a break, not prioritizing your self-care, burnout is a real thing. It happens. I've gone through it. Like you might get to a point where you're saying, no, I'm just tired. I don't want to do this anymore. I've done this so much. It doesn't feel, worth to keep going through all these rejections. And a lot of that can be kind of like prevented or delayed if we just take a break. We take some time to, unwind, let our minds kind of reset a little bit. So I just wanted to give a couple things about why self-care is super important. So like I said, recovering from burnout is super hard. I once went through a burnout that lasted about 2 months where I just couldn't do anything. I couldn't apply for jobs. I couldn't really focus on work. I had like a million side projects that were just sitting there. And nothing was bringing me joy to actually do. And like the job search can be lonely. So communities like this are great to come to because there's other people, doing it. It doesn't have to be lonely. You can, reach out to other people doing the same thing, exchange tips, things like that. And you can go through like a lot of missed opportunities when you're too tired to grasp them. So when I was in that phase of burnout, there were a couple of opportunities that came my way, but I was just like so out of it and so like unmotivated that, I couldn't bring myself to actually try hard enough to get those opportunities. And I think if I just like took some time to just unwind in between, I probably would have had more energy and more drive to actually go for them. So the last thing is just to remember that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint or a race. You don't have to get there super fast. You don't have to keep running and running. You can pace yourself. You can, take your time. You don't have to be like the winner, be the first one to do something. If we get there, that's what matters. Now, I guess some things that I wanted to share since we're kind of like in a pandemic right now. Some things to remember, and I noticed this from like the last recession during 2008. There's a ton of startups that just new businesses that start up during times like these. So you can probably expect that, in the coming year or two, once they have like some, funding and things like that, there'll probably be more jobs at that point. it's going to take some time, but they will eventually come. Another way to prep, again, practice with others. You have an awesome community here at Virtual Coffee. Practice, algos or, interviewing with other people. The other thing is building and learning in public, something that I love doing. I'm writing a book right now, doing that in public, sharing my, I guess, thoughts and different things I'm writing in it as I go along. And the last thing is like creating experience. So, as a newer developer, the biggest thing is like, how do we get that experience? Everyone wants that experience. We can, create it just by like trying to create our own products. You don't have to sell it. You don't have to, put it out there so much, but like get into the mindset of thinking about making a product for a person, because that's what you're going to be doing on the job, not a project. So that's something that I've also been talking about a little bit in my book. And it's just like, it's a different sort of mindset you can have just for making yourself stand out like a lot more. So just a few things, again, that helped me. For me personally, I sought professional help for a lot of the issues I'm going through. Not everyone's comfortable with that, but if you are, I definitely recommend it. Finding communities like this one. For me, building products and founding a startup. I'm not saying everyone needs to go build a startup, but it's something fun and cool that I've been doing just as a different sort of like thing to get me motivated. Playing video games. I love playing video games. Making music, like I mentioned, I love hip hop. I have game nights on Zoom with like some friends, some family. And as you're going through, definitely want to keep your coding skills up. I like starting or contributing to open source products. So there are different ways to like both keep your mental state in a good spot, as well as continue to get on your way to becoming a better developer, get to the point where you can stand out when you're applying for jobs. And yeah, that's kind of it. I really, really hope that was helpful for some people. And yeah, thank you for tuning in to my talk.
Thank you so much for being here. I think that was really fantastic. And it was a lot of information that a lot of us needed to hear right now, especially I feel strongly about mental health issues too. So sharing allows other people to feel more comfortable. So I really appreciate your talk and thank you for being here.
Yep, definitely.
All right. So if you want to comment or if you have any questions for Rahat, please feel free to tag him in the event chat channel and Slack. And I'm going to go ahead and bring on our next speaker.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next up we have Courtney, and she's going to be teaching us about Firebase today. She'll be giving an introduction and a demo, hopefully. A little bit about Courtney. She is a full stack software engineer in Pennsylvania. She has a master's degree in information systems and experience in healthcare and education technology. So we're going to go ahead and get Courtney to share her screen. And once we get that, we can go ahead and get started.
Hello, okay.
Hey, welcome.
All right, is it showing?
I do
Oh,
not.
not yet.
Oh,
Okay.
There we go. All right.
So can you see the slideshow there?
Yes, it's there. It looks great.
Okay. All right, so I'm Courtney. I'm a software engineer and I'm at a small startup called Learnix, and I'm going to give you an introduction and demo of Firebase. So, and there's a GitHub repo if you want to look at it. Let's see, get to the right screen here. Okay, what is Firebase? So Firebase is a Google service. It's a comprehensive platform for web and mobile applications. It basically allows you to let Google handle the server-side implementation. It offers a lot of services, which allow you advantages such as quickly being able to develop services like on the server side, like authentication, for instance, is one of the services they offer that you don't have to build it out yourself. Seamless scaling. And also you have access to Google features such as analytics, quality metrics, and machine learning. These are things you can add right into your project pretty easily. So, and we are going to move on to the demo. So all right, so I built a Vue application, just a little thing to help show you how to add Firebase into your application. So what we're going to do today is add a database, Firestore, and host it, like add hosting, so it can be hosted online. So I'm going to go, when I go to the console, this is the main screen of the console. When I'm creating a new project, I would add a project and give it a name. I'm not going to do this. I already have a blank one set up because of internet. I don't want it. It takes a while. So I'm going to go to the one I already set up. This is a blank one. What I want to do first here is add Firestore. But actually what I want to do is kind of go through kind of the features that are available here in Firebase for adding to your project. Authentication, which I talked a little bit about before. They offer authentication with many platforms that you pick and choose what you want to add to your app. So you're able to use like Google Logon, obviously, or email password. You could do anonymous. You could use things like GitHub, Facebook, all the things. So you just pick and choose those. For databases, they offer two options, Cloud Firestore, and real-time database. I don't know much about real-time database. All I know is when you're starting a new project, they recommend that you use Firestore. So I'm assuming like real-time was their first option, and now they're mainly focusing on Firestore. So there's that. Storage is comparable to an AWS S3 bucket. So for storing and serving user-generated content, like if you want to allow your users to upload images or videos and serve them to them, you can do that through that. Hosting, we're going to show today. Functions, there's serverless functions, Google's offering there. If you're not familiar with serverless functions, they basically allow you to run server-side tasks without building and maintaining a server. So Firebase offers a lot of kind of cool things you can do with functions, like triggered functions based on other services. Like, for instance, we have an authentication trigger function that whenever a new user authenticates with our authentication platform, it will trigger this background function, which will automatically add them to our user's document in Firestore. And so they also have a lot of functions that triggers that based on Firestore, like database reads and writes. So you can do server-side processing of data on the back end. But so I just wanted to go through that. Machine learning, I don't know a lot about. I don't use it myself, so I'm not really going to speak to that. And you can add analytics and have dashboard here and performance metrics, things like that. So we're going to go back to the demo. Firestore. This is the new project. So I'm going to create a new database here and start in test mode just for testing purposes. So it'll only allow you to do it for a day. The security rules. So we'll see. Seems to be working so far. All right, so I'm going over to my existing database here. So you can see I already have it set up to, I have a collection of coffees and some documents, and their IDs are randomly generated, but you can set that if you'd like. So in each document, I have the data, which are ingredients array, a name, and slug. They're all strings, but they have lots of options here. So I want to add it to the project. I'm going to go to the project settings. So you can add it with an SDK, these script tags, but because it's a Vue project, I have npm installed Firebase, so I'm going to use the config here. So I'm going to take this config and I'm going to go to my project. You can see I've already done this. I've added it in, imported Firebase, initialized Firestore, and exported the database to use within. So I'll just go through and show you what I've done. So I'm just getting the entire coffees collection here and iterating through them and adding them to the app. So we can see that there. And I can also add an item, which I'm doing here. I'm saving it to the database here. So there are other options you could do. You can set up a listener instead of a GET request. You can do an on snapshot request, which would set up a listener to fire a callback function every time anything changes within this collection, and whatever you set here. So it would call a function, and you can get real-time updates to your app. Okay, so we added Firebase or Firestore, sorry. Now I just want to demo the hosting. So you can see it finally did create the database here. So for hosting, you do through the command line interface. So this is just walking you through it here. So you need Firebase tools. You would install it on globally. And then next step is, it's pretty easy, Firebase login. So it will log you in. I'll just go through that since my internet seems to be working well. I'm logged in, correct account. So you can, and it's a command line interface, has a lot of options. I'll just look at my projects. And it will show me the list of the ones I have in this account on Firebase. So, but none of them are hosted. Well, they are, but that's just because I got it ready beforehand. So I'm going to just show you how to do that. So next you would Firebase init. So that just walks you through like the services you want to use. I'm just going to do Firestore and hosting. And emulators is another thing that I haven't talked about, but you can run an the Firebase emulator suite. This is very new, so I haven't used it a lot yet, but run your Firestore and functions and everything, run it all locally and use it for testing. And it's pretty nice. I just haven't really had the chance to really go in and add it to my app and work with it. So anyway, okay, I have those two services. I'm going to set that up. I'm just going to put defaults here. View app, so the public directory will be dist. No. All right, so it's as simple as that. And then when you want to deploy, you could just Firebase deploy, and that will deploy to the hosting if you're in the correct project, which I am. So I'm just showing this. That's deploying, and I can go back to my hosting and it will be there deployed, and hopefully that will work for us. Nope. There we go. Okay, so it's deployed, and you can add custom hosting and things like that. So that's it for the demo. We go back to the slideshow. So some things to consider, it is Google. It's a Google product. You're locked into Google if you use it. It's a cloud storage, cloud Firebase database. So you don't really own it on your own servers. It's Google. So, and because it's NoSQL database, it's been said that they're tough to migrate because it's stored in JSON data. It's a cloud service. So same with AWS. You've heard of people waking up to a huge AWS bill. I think Firebase is a lot cheaper than AWS, but still there's a possibility of getting a whole bunch of traffic and having the cost increase over time, or surprisingly cost increase. Also, it's fairly new, and there's a lot of features that are still in beta. In fact, a lot of the trigger functions that I talked about are still in beta. So there's that to consider. Also, if you want to look at the docs, that's the link, and the console link is there too. So, and that's it for me. So I just want to thank you to Virtual Coffee for allowing me to demonstrate Firebase to you, and I hope you got something out of it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Courtney. That was fantastic. I think that you gave us like a really great overview. And I know that for me, I thought like, okay, I might be able to do that. Like I always feel like it can be really challenging and overwhelming to do something new. And Firebase is one of those things that intimidates me, and you made it seem not intimidating. So thank you.
Thanks.
If you have any questions or comments for Courtney, please feel free to throw those in the event chat. She also has the link. We'll probably get the links to the slides or definitely to that GitHub repo that we can post in our Slack as well. So thank you so much for being here, and we will go ahead and get ready for our next speaker.
Thanks.
Let's see here. Sorry about that. So our next speaker is Mike Rogers. Mike is going to be presenting today on developing in multiple languages. And Mike is a web developer from London. He has specialized in making performant Ruby on Rails applications since 2012. And Mike is also been building some Slack bots for us at Virtual Coffee, and we are very, very thankful and excited for that. So welcome, Mike. It's great to have you here with us.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. That's so nice of you. Should I go ahead and share my screen?
Sure.
Okay, dokes. So I think it is that one. Okay. Yeah. So,
We see it.
Wonderful. Cool. I just want to thank, I'm just going to move these windows over. Okay, cool. Just really want to thank Courtney. That was a really good talk on Firebase, and I think for the lovely introduction. I might go give that a go. So yeah, I'm Mike. I'm a Ruby developer from the UK, and I'm going to talk to you about switching languages and installing lots of different languages at the same time on your computer. So that should be quite fun. So where does this come from? So I like to try lots of different languages, like especially when I do the exorcisms. Shout out to the exorcism channel. You should go join it and give them a try. But I really don't like installing lots of languages. Like they're quite, like it's kind of annoying just to have to spend like a morning kind of getting something going just to write like that much code. It's kind of like not my jam. And I kind of wish it would be a bit easier. So a quick question. And if you want to drop it in the chat, that's totally cool. Or if you just want to just kind of think about it, that's also totally all right. Do you remember how you installed your first programming language? Like, what did you have to do to do it? Like, did you have to like use Homebrew? Did you have to follow like a load of like scripts or something, or copy and paste little bits online? If anyone wants to chuck anything. Okay, cool. So I've got like the chat just below me, so I'm just kind of watching it kind of come through. For me, I totally remember using like a really interesting tool, and it wasn't Homebrew. It was a tool called WAMP. This is how I installed my first programming language back in the day, and it was so good. I have like such a good memory of it because it came with PHP, which is the language I started with, but it also came with Apache, a MySQL database, and a tool called PHP-MyAdmin, just to kind of show my age. And it literally would like let you look at the database, and this blew my mind. It was like, oh, I loved it. It was so cool. But now, like I've kind of moved on. I'm a Ruby developer. Whenever I like look to go install new languages, they normally have something like this where it's like, okay, you have to install all these various tools. You maybe have to make a choice between two, which might do the same thing. And oh, sweet, someone else uses WAMP. That's so cool. And it's kind of annoying because when I go online to decide which way to install it, it's kind of like, oh, there's like 60 million results telling me how to do it. And this isn't like a Ruby specific problem. So I went searching online for like the best tool which lets me just kind of install stuff just for fun. And I found two really cool solutions, Docker and ASDF. I really wanted to talk about them both in this talk, but I didn't quite have enough time. So I'm going to do Docker another time for when I come back. And we're going to focus on ASDF because that's, I think, the best one. So I'm not sure if anyone's seen ASDF before, but it is super nice. So it's a bit like Homebrew in the sense that you can kind of install any piece of software out there, except for it's made for like programmer specific like scenarios. So you can run 2 different versions of the same language on your computer and it'll just work and it'll be really pleasant. So yeah, but the thing I really like about it is it's got this really nice install screen where you just kind of say what you want or your setup and it will give you the right tools. And it's like awesome. It's like, yeah, you've got it. And it's not like unapproachable. It's like, these are like the main commands you'll use. And I think it's not like, you can kind of take a guess at roughly what these all do, kind of. And I like that. Let's just go through them though. You've got ASDF like plugin add Ruby. So the way ASDF works is it's plugin based. And that means like, it doesn't necessarily know like how to install Ruby. It has to go off the internet and get the details. So people have made repositories of how to install them. The exact details don't matter, but you just have to always start the first time you do a language by doing ASDF add plugin, like or language or what have you. Like ASDF plugin add the language. There we go. The thing written on the screen. And then you kind of tell ASDF, okay, install this language and give me this exact version. Sometimes it's a bit hard to get the exact version. You can just use the word latest, but for this one, I just kind of picked the exact version number. And then this global one's like a little bit weird, but it basically is telling your computer to always use that version of that programming language. So unless you kind of specify something else. So for example, if you're in like another folder and you didn't have anything set, it will just use that version. And you may have to like open a new tab after you've done all that. Like I normally just do out of habit, but it generally works and that's great. But what's super duper duper cool is this is how you install Python. And it looks really similar. It's like the same. Like once you learn like those few commands, you can install anything. It's awesome. You can even install Yarn, which is super nice. So I'm also going to go through like how you install the different versions or like run different versions of it, like per project, because I'm assuming most people here would be kind of safe to say you maybe work on some older projects and some newer ones, and you might need a different version. Oh, cool. Thanks, Nick. And yeah, it's important. So it is actually not too bad to install anyone. You just have to know this local command, and it's saying, okay, within this folder, every time I'm working within this folder, use this version of these bits of software. So in this case, I've specified like Ruby and Python, and that's pretty awesome. And what it's going to do is create a .tools version file, and that's just going to save that there. And once you add it to version control, it'll just always remember it, which is kind of a bit like if you ever use Ruby, the Ruby version file, but it kind of works for everything. Cool. And yeah, it is totally like magic. I love it. Cool. But what I really like about this tools version file is once I knew about it and I knew about ASDF, I started seeing it everywhere. Like it was like mind blown, door open. That was awesome. And the really cool thing about that tools version file is if you then clone down a repo, go into it, you can run ASDF install. It will just install the dependencies required. So if someone's using a slightly different version of like Ruby or Python or Node or what have you on your team, that's fine. It'll work. That's like you'll be able to install it. You'll have a good time and you won't have those weird different version errors out the box, which is good. And it's also got some really nice help documentation, which I think is like really like, if I ever get stuck, I can just type help and it will just tell me what to do, which I like. And that's everything. I hope this gave everyone like enough like kind of knowledge to be like, okay, maybe instead of using RBEM for something else, they might just use ASDF and give it a try, and they feel like that's something they want to do. And also thank you Virtual Coffee people for letting me come along and talk for a little bit.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike. I think that this was really great. I know that I learned a lot, and I know that Ruby is still not working on my computer since installing my update. So I think trying this, I'm gonna ping you, and you're gonna watch me do it, so I make sure that I get it right. So I think that this is really great, and so I appreciate you taking the time out to do this, for helping us to learn something new. And I know that a lot of people really enjoyed your talk. So thank you for being here and for being a part of Virtual Coffee. Again, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to drop those in the event chat, and definitely tag him specifically to make sure it doesn't get lost. So thank you so much for being here.
No worries.
All right, we are going to go ahead and bring on our next speaker. And so up next, we have Karen Dickinson. Karen is going to be talking to us about overcoming imposter syndrome as a freelancer. Karen is a front-end developer and engineer who uses HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to theme and build out database-driven websites, specifically WordPress and Drupal. And I am very happy to have Karen here to talk to us about these things. And I also had the pleasure of hearing Karen's presentation, and I know it's going to be a good one. So thank you, Karen, for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. Let me get my slides up and running for you. All right, I want to share that with you. All right. Some disclaimers. This is my first talk ever. And it is talk about my personal journey in overcoming imposter syndrome. Everyone's journey is different, and hopefully this talk will provide you with some ideas for your own journey. I've been working for web agencies as a remote freelancer for over 12 years, a majority of my coding career. There are aspects of remote freelancing that have made it difficult to keep my imposter syndrome in check. And we're not advancing. There we go. First, I feel like an outsider. That lack of in-person communication. I'm usually the sole remote member of the team. I'm also usually the only freelancer coming in to help out on a project. So I'm dealing with a group of team members who are employees in a physical environment. And I have to, so as the remote person, I have to rely on project management software, Slack, and email to communicate with them where they have more options. I'm an extreme introvert. I need to figure out a group dynamic before I speak up. I've gotten comfortable with all of you, so speak I do. As a freelancer, as you see, challenge keeping the slides in check. As a freelancer, I lack feedback or validation for my work. Usually I come into a project after the RFP process and post kickoff. I have little or no contact with the client, and any communication with the client is done through the project management software. I also don't have any access to any metrics from before or after the project to quantify my impact of my work. Another thing missing as a freelancer is I lack a boss or manager. I don't have a manager to give me an annual review or provide me with some growth goals for the upcoming year. I have to do it myself, and it takes a lot of self-reflection. With the lack of feedback and the lack of an annual review, I usually don't know where I stand. Some things that I have done to mitigate my imposter syndrome. I have to set my own growth goals, make a list of the topics I want to learn, and if you're visual like me, a mind map can help. Establish the relationships between the different topics and give you a little more logical flow of how to study them. You prioritize and scheduling. Just trying 30 minutes a couple of times a week to keep the concepts fresh in your mind is helpful. And if you're like me, sometimes when those 30 minutes go really slowly, and other times I look up and it's an hour and a half later because I've gotten so engrossed. Keeping track of your accomplishments. Keep a journal of your daily or weekly progress on projects or tutorials, as well as events and conferences you have attended. Review your notes at the end of the month to get a snapshot of what you've done. And end of the year, reviewing those monthly snapshots, you'll see how much you have grown. Finding a supportive, non-judgmental community. Virtual Coffee does this for me, thanks. Another group that I've found good is Free Code Camp. I was a co-organizer of a local free code camp here in Ann Arbor, and it's in Michigan. And we've had people come who are just dipping their toes into HTML and CSS and just starting, and others who have been into the industry for a decade or more, deciding they want to learn React or D3. It's a learning environment, and no matter what level you are at, you are welcome. Putting yourself out there can be hard. Participating in the community. With most meetups currently remote, look for groups beyond your town, city, and country that cover topics that interest you or that you are learning. When we go back to in-person events, if you're shy or introverted like me and it's a group you haven't been involved with before, take an event buddy with you. Either someone obviously someone you know locally, hopefully within the industry, but doesn't have to be someone who has the exact same interests as you. Within these groups that you find, offer help or mentor. And on the flip side, find a mentor. Participating in open source projects, especially VC's Hacktoberfest, is a great way to put yourself out there. Last but not least, write or present. Start with small steps and build up. Your posts on social media and Twitter, it can be as simple as a retweet of someone you admire and add a couple of leading comments with the retweet. And then you can build up to your own content. Blogging, it doesn't have to be technical. It can be a description of your learning journey. And a platform like DevTO provides a great environment to do that with. Last but not least, present. All right, first timer here, a lightning talk, 5-10 minutes, lots of preparation, lots of nerves, but you can do it. So in conclusion, with most events and work environments currently remote, we're all on the same boat. We are all interacting remotely via Slack, email, or Zoom, and we don't have to worry about in-office banter around the physical water cooler anymore. So get yourself out there. You're the only one who can open the door. And open that virtual door with Zoom or Slack. You can do it. Now, my personal thanks to Virtual Coffee. You're the community that I've been missing in my career. You're providing me the support I need to swing open my own door. I haven't vanquished imposter syndrome yet, but my confidence is building. Thanks to each and every one of you.
Karen, I just want to say, I think that you have done a fantastic job here. This has been really great, and I know that we all appreciate it. There was so much good content in there, and that's why, I love lightning talks because, you spoke for maybe a little over 5 minutes, but we learned so much, and we were so inspired by what you had to say. So thank you for putting yourself out there, for feeling comfortable sharing all of this information with us. And I know a lot of us would like to hear a lot more about some of the things that you talked about.
Well, I get my inspiration from you guys too. So thanks for being my support network.
Oh, thank you so much, Karen. This has been absolutely wonderful, being able to hear all of this. So if you have comments for Karen, there are definitely a lot of comments in the live stream if you want to go check those out, but feel free to tag her in the event chat channel if you have questions. Thank you again. You did a wonderful job, and I am really glad that you chose to do this with us.
Thanks for asking. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so up next, we have Nick Taylor. He's going to be talking to us about conventional comments. Nick is a senior software engineer at Forum Dev, and he's working on all things Forum. Something important to know about Nick is that he does not get along with spiders. So here he is, and we are very, very happy to have him here to talk to us about these things. Thanks, Nick.
All right, just gonna share my screen here. I'm assuming everybody can see my slides.
Yep, it's up, it's good.
Cool, cool. All right. My name is Nick Taylor, like Becca said, so I guess I don't need to do that. Just want to say good morning, afternoon, and evening to everybody, wherever you are in the world, and welcome. Today we're gonna talk about conventional comments because words matter. I talk about conventional comments in my Hacktoberfest talk, getting the most out of open source, but today we're going to talk about it a little more in depth. All right, so a bit about me, kind of repeating some of the stuff Becca said, but so I'll gloss over it. But basically, I'm at Nicky T online everywhere on social media. You can check me out at imdeveloper.com. I also do live coding on Twitch at twitch.tv/thepracticaldev and livecoding.ca. And also, excuse me, we also interview some folks from the tech space. All right. So code reviews, we all do them. It's part of our work as software engineers. Giving feedback can be hard and it can be taken the wrong way. Words matter. If you're working in open source, it's not just a project. You're fostering a community. If your project isn't open source, you're still fostering relationships with your colleagues. So how do we do that? We use a system that helps us and our colleagues or fellow open source contributors interact in a constructive manner. What is that system? Conventional comments. What is conventional comments? Conventional comments is a standard for formatting comments of any kind of review/feedback process. My coworker, Michael Cole, an amazing engineer and awesome human, pointed me to the conventional comments site a few months ago. If you look at the example in the slide here, you'll see that in the screenshot, it says, this is not worded correctly. But if you look at the adjustment where it says, suggestion, this is not worded correctly, it changes the tone dramatically of the comment. It's amazing how framing a comment differently can come across a lot better. I'm going to say this a lot, but remember, words matter. Conventional comments are broken into 4 sections: the label, the subject, decorations, and a subject, followed by the discussion. Decorations are optional. So, for example, in this screenshot, the label is question, the optional decoration is non-blocking, in parentheses, and then there is a subject followed by the actual discussion. All right, let's look at some examples in the wild. It also gave me a reason to post a photo of Samuel Jackson. That's another thing that I like. Pulp Fiction, anybody? So we're going to take a few peeks at some examples in the forum repository because that's where I work in my day-to-day. Here is an example of conventional comments in action in a discussion between 2 of my awesome coworkers. The fact that my coworker Michael explicitly mentioned this is a non-blocking comment gave me the impression that this conversation was more welcoming in regards to responding to it. And you can see that in Vaidehi's response in the pull request comments. Here's another example of conventional comments with something that is blocking a pull request from being merged. In this example, I'm interacting with a contributor from the dev/forum community. I mark my comment as refactor, which is the label, and that it's blocking, the decoration. This is followed by the subject, and the rest of the message is the discussion explaining why this is blocking. Once again, the tone of the comment changes. Here's an example of conventional comments with something that is a nitpick. In this example, my coworker Michael has a nitpick about some of the code. It's just a nitpick, and by explicitly writing nitpick, it's made clear that this is not the end of the world. Read non-blocking. They are just mentioning how they'd prefer things, but the pull request can still be merged. There's also some other uses for conventional comments. You can use them in peer reviews, revising and editing of documents, and also RFCs, requests for comments. I've only used conventional comments for code reviews, but feel free to try them out in these other forms of review as well. All right, let's wrap things up here. This is a true lightning talk, so super fast. Remember, words matter. Take the time when writing feedback. And maybe try out conventional comments. It's a great system for feedback. It might not be for everybody, but I found it's very helpful in my own work. One thing I'd like to mention in the slide deck, once you get a chance to take a peek at it, is that the GitHub screenshots actually link to those actual pull requests, so you can actually go see the whole conversations. And there's just a few resources here. I'd highly suggest giving my coworker Michael a follow on Twitter. He's very knowledgeable in the development space, and he also just really cool dude. Aside from that, check out the Conventional Comments website. And you can also, if you'd like to, check out my Hacktoberfest talk from this year, which talks about conventional comments, but it also just talks about open source in general. And that's it. So thanks for coming to the talk, and I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to give me a follow on Twitter and/or Dev. I'm at Mickey T online everywhere.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. That was really great. And I think it's so important. And I actually have never heard anyone talk about conventional comments before. And I think that it's a really important topic and that we all should be more deliberate with everything that we're saying. And I love that emphasis of framing.
Yeah. Also, I fixed my hair today. It's the first time since pandemic.
Look how special we are. Well, thank you so much for fixing your hair and for giving us this fantastic presentation. I like your moose and the backgrounds.
Thank you. The moose is
in upgraded office decor. So it was great to have you here and to hear about that. And I know I would love to hear more about it sometime. So maybe a brown bag is in the future.
Okay. Cool.
All right. So thanks for being here. If you have any comments for Nick, go ahead and throw that in the event room, the event chat room in Slack. And also please tag him in that so he can see those comments. And I know there's some comments waiting for you on the live stream as well.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And up next, we have Lucia, and she is going to be talking to us about why do we index from 0. And Lucia is a software engineer from Phoenix, Arizona. She enjoys knocking out solutions in JavaScript and Python. And I know that I learned a lot from her presentation, and I hope that you enjoy it as much as I did. So thanks for being here, Lucia.
Thanks. I'm honored and excited to be here. I'm just going to share my screen here to start us off. Hold on just a moment. All righty.
There we go. I just want to hit present and then.
All right. So today we're talking about why we index from 0. And we're going to be looking at a paper by a guy named Dijkstra. He was from the Netherlands. He was born in 1930 and he died in 2002. And he started his influential computer programming and mathematics work in the 50s. He worked at a few European institutions before transferring over to UT Austin and doing a lot of his work there. So there we go. One thing I want to point out before we go into this is that we're not counting from 0 in our programming languages, most programming languages, except for I think like Fortran and maybe one other. We are indexing from 0. And the difference there is, say you want to count like 5 ducks, you have 5 ducks no matter what position they're in, right? Once you put them in order and you add that element of position to your counting, then you're indexing. So for example, in this series, 2 is in the first position, but it's 0 positions offset from the first position. That was helpful to me when I was thinking about this paper. Okay, so Dijkstra was interested in the best way to notate a subsequence. He used in his paper, for an example, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 12. You'll notice he uses the symbols less than and less than or equal to, which is because if you use greater than or greater than equal to, you're reading from right to left, not left to right. So we're just using those 2 symbols. So I'm going to let you guys take a moment to read through the 4 options he found for notating it, because he thought you might think, why not just use the ellipses? Well, mathematicians use a couple different principles for arguing different ways to notate things. One of them is it true? And that's like scientists, right? But with scientists, you see them often arguing from the pragmatic. For example, like a lot of the geocentrists knew there was something fishy with their theory, but it worked for most of the things they were trying to do, so they rolled with it. Mathematicians are looking for the truth, but they're also looking for something that's beautiful, and mathematicians don't like using these ellipses to notate subsequences. They prefer to use the less than and less than or equal to signs. So I'm just going to give you a minute to read through these 4 different statements and notice the differences between them before we move on to the next slide. Okay, so let's look at A and B. There's 2 different advantages that both A and B carry. The upper and lower bounds are the numbers that we use to notate the edges of the subsequence. So in A, that's 13 and 2. The difference between them is this equal to the number of elements in the subsequence. So 13 minus 2 is 11, and 12 minus 1 is 11. So that's nice and neat and handy. That also means that in adjacent sequences or sequences of numbers in order that are right next to each other, the upper bound of one is equal to the lower bound of the other. So the sequences from 2 to 13 and 13 to 23 are adjacent. And you'll notice that the upper bound of the first 13 is equal to the lower bound of the second, which is also 13. But both of these methods have both these advantages, so that doesn't really help us choose between them. So let's go back to the beginning. Dijkstra asked the question, what if we're trying to notate something from 0? If we used, say, method B, we'd have to start with -1. And mathematicians don't like this. They call it ugly. So that narrows down his approach. We preferred A and B before, but now we have an advantage of A, which is that doesn't have to go down to 0 to negative numbers to notate something from 0. So A is the method we're going to use to notate subsequences. And just a side note, this paper was written by Dijkstra. It was on 3 pages, and it was in response to another mathematician throwing shade at him because he accused his Dijkstra students of being pretentious because they were all indexing from 0. So there's a lot of drama in the world of computer science and mathematics. So this is the last little piece of Dijkstra's paper, and we're just gonna break it down very slowly. I'll read out loud what he wrote. He says, when dealing with the sequence of length n, so that's the length of our subsequence, the elements of which we wish to distinguish by subscript, that's basically indexing like what we do in programming languages. The next vexing question is what subscript value to assign to its starting element. Okay, so what do we do, 0 or 1? Adhering to convention A yields, when starting with subscript 1, the subscript range 1 less than or equal to I less than n plus 1. But if we start with 0, we get the nicer range, 0 less than or equal to I less than n. And he says, so let our ordinals start at 0. An element's ordinal or subscript or index equals the number of elements preceding it in the sequence. And the moral of the story is that we had better regard, after all these centuries, 0 as a most natural number. Okay, so let's work through a simple example to understand that. If we have a subsequence 1, 2, 3, it's of length 3, right? We have 3 elements in there. If we use method A, we notate it as 1 less than or equal to the middle elements, which is less than 4. But 4 is 3 plus 1, so we lose that nice feature that we had earlier where you could have the last element be equal to the length. But if we notate it like 0 is less than or equal to the middle elements, which is less than 3, we get the upper bound exactly equal to the length. That's beautiful. Mathematicians love that. And that is why most of our languages index from 0. And that concludes my talk today.
All right, thank you so much. I know this has been a really great topic for me to learn about personally, and I know that I'm not the only one that feels that way. So I really want to thank you for sharing this with us and teaching us today. This has been really, really great.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me here.
Okay, as always, if you have questions or if you have comments, or certainly if you would like to see Lucia do a brown bag on this, I know she knows a lot of stuff, so definitely let's encourage her to do that. And tag her in the event chat if you have questions or comments or you want to continue the conversation. And I think that's it for this topic. And thank you again for being here and doing this.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Dan Uhl. He is going to be talking to us about fine-tuning front-end platforms. Dan is a software engineer at Wayfair in Boston. And a fun fact about him is that he hikes every day with his 3-year-old Cavachon, which is a dog. And I probably did not pronounce the name of that dog correctly. But that is our fun fact about Dan. And now we are going to go ahead and hear what he has to teach us. And I think it's a really interesting topic, and I'm very, very happy that you're here to do it with us.
Hey, thanks. I'm trying to share and hitting a security thing. Give me a sec.
Okay. Let's see. Let me also look for your slides as a backup. Are you having any luck?
It wants me to restart Zoom.
How about, would it be okay if I run your slides and you can just tell me when to click the next one?
Sure.
Okay, let me make sure that it is loading up these slides. I will go ahead and share. Whoops. There we go. Okay, can you see the slides?
Yep.
All right, excellent. Just go ahead and tell me what you need me to do.
All right, cool. I'll just say next. Yeah, so I'm Dan from Wayfair, and I'm going to be talking about platforms. So you can go to the next. So for some context, I work in a somewhat large company. It's no Google or Microsoft, but it's around 3,000 engineers. And at that level, teams get very highly specialized. And so you'll have a team of like 10 or 15 people working on like just one specific web page or things like that. Also, in such a large company, teams move around and shift ownership a lot. So these are all sort of considerations at the platform level. Next.
Maybe. Is that the right one?
Yep. Good. So why even have a front-end platforms team? Well, at the heart of it, platforms teams are there to optimize developer experience and make it so that they can build things as fast as possible at scale. And they do that by, I think the obvious one is they own the platform. So like any build tools or sometimes CI pipelines and deploy tools, and also provide documentation, education, support around the recommended tooling. So it helps if everybody's, for example, using React, because people can switch between teams easier and develop faster because the code is a little bit more recognizable. Next. There's another aspect to a platform team that I didn't realize for quite a while. There's this dilemma of the way that teams have different levels of expertise and different personalities and different people. And to have a really good platforms team, I think you actually need to talk a lot with people and what they need and not just worry about the technical side. Next. So here's one example of one really far side of the spectrum. You'll have a team that, say it's like a Java team, or maybe it's people like right out of college that have a lot of experience with algorithms and data structures, but not the front end experience. And what these teams need and want is like for the front end to just work, right? I just need a UI on top of my database. I want some system where I can just get things up and deployed easily. So for that, the front end team wants to make very sort of tucked away logic that somebody can just go to a site, hit a button, and they can have something deployed without having to worry about it. Next. Yes, I realized when I made this that it's just like scratching the surface of what we have on our front end stack to like get something coded and deployed as a UI at Wayfair. But in making this list, it helps you empathize with this sort of a mindset. Like you can't have everybody learn all of these things, even though I'm somewhat familiar with most of them, and these things change over time too. So like, we recently switched to GKE, Google Kubernetes and Google Cloud technology, and having to deploy and then learn kubectl to try and figure out if things deployed properly or debug things is a very new thing, and that's going to probably change in the next year. So I really empathize with this kind of team. Next. So on the other side of the spectrum, you have teams, and you have the whole gradient in between these two, but you have these other teams where they have experts in front end already. They know how to set up Webpack. They know the path that they want. Maybe they've come from a Vue background, and your sort of paved path is React, but they want to do their own thing, right? And they think it's better, and they can go in that direction. And usually what happens is they'll get through pretty far, and then they'll hit this one thing that's just not quite working. And then they'll come to the platform team and say, hey, I'm doing all this stuff, and this one thing's not working. And yeah, you can go to the next slide. So yeah, we love these people because they poke holes in the platform and reveal edge cases, and they're most likely to actually come back and contribute to the platform. But if they're off doing their own thing and they run into a problem, there's not much that the platform team can do to help them because they're off the paved path and they're in their own setup. And if too many people are doing this, you lose that scalability. You lose sort of the entire point of the platform team to like take that work away so that they can focus on really interesting business problems in their area. So it's important to build the platform in a way that caters for both of these. So you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so the ideal between these two is getting to know which teams need everything to be sort of on rails and which teams need guidance so that they can actually come back and contribute. So really good documentation, I think, is one super good key to this. Another one is being very clear about what the paved path is and what the benefits to a paved path are. Basically, you get free upgrades. You get to stay in sync with the rest of the company. You make it easy for people to join your team and leave your team. But you also need to write clean, good, reliable code that's well tested and have a really good contribution guide so that these DIY teams can come back and tell you like, hey, the business needs this. It's the platform's not working. Let me go ahead and modify it for you or help out. Or even, this is the pool of people that we actually hire internally for the platform team because they're great candidates for that. Next slide. Yeah, that's it. You can find me on Twitter or dev.tube.
Okay, let me find my screen here. Here we go. All right, stop sharing. And excellent. That was really great. And I know that I learned a lot from your presentation. As a freelancer, these things don't really enter into my mind. And so to be able to like think about the processes and think about, all of these different things that you need to think through, I know that I learned a lot from this. So I really appreciate you talking about this and teaching me something. Yeah, and I also want to say thank you for bearing with us in the technical difficulties aspect of these things. This is, I think you did a really great job allowing me to navigate your slides. So thanks for letting me do that.
Thanks a lot. I don't normally use Zoom, so I'll be more prepared next time.
Oh no, it's totally fine. We're figuring this out as we go, and so we learn from your presentation, and I think that's like what's most important here. And this has been really great. So thanks for doing this. If you have questions or comments for Dan, again, you can tag him in the event chat. And I know there's some in the live stream as well, but I think that this was a really great overview, and I'm very excited to learn some more about this in the future. So thank you.
Thanks.
All right. We are going to take a couple of seconds before we get to the end of our program. But I just want to say thank you to all of our speakers. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I've heard, or a couple of them, they have to do with community and being a part of the community and also communicating really clearly. And so I really appreciate that. Like, even though we didn't theme these things, we kind of see it throughout, whether we're talking about communicating with documentation or doing self-evaluations and expressing where we're at with the people around us. Or how we comment on each other's code. Like, all of these things are really important and really great. And I love that. I feel like I'm getting a really well-rounded understanding of things that I need to be working on, or things to help me grow, or things to consider as I move forward in my developer journey. So I am like super excited to have all of these things. And I will be posting the slides in the chat in Slack once we're done. So I know that a lot of people have asked for the slides. There's a lot of really great information there. So don't worry, they will be available. And give me 1 second. Let's see. Thank you for bearing with us. And now we are very, very excited to have Gant talking to us today about TensorFlow. So let me just 1 second grab my little description. So thanks, Gant, for being here and talking to us about TensorFlow. A little bit of background about Gant. He is an owner of Infinite Red. He's a mentor, adjunct professor, published author, and an award-winning speaker. In If you don't know it, Gant is aspiring to be a mad scientist. I think he is very close to being there. And I think that talking to us at about TensorFlow is going to help you understand how Gant is going to get there. Gant is doing a lot of stuff in the community. So whether it's a blog, a video, a podcast, you can bet that Gant is doing it in some way. So thank you so much for being here. We are very excited to hear your talk.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi. I'm sorry about that. Work emergencies that have to happen on Fridays when you're not wanting them to happen. Of course, I think that's a rule. But regardless, we're going to be able to dig into this fun adventure right here. And Becca, let me know if I should cut my talk short by any amount of time or anything like that. I want to be considerate of everybody's time. And my ultimate goal of this is to make sure everybody has a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, thanks. We're running right on schedule, actually. So I think that we are very pleasantly surprised at being able to do that. So go for it.
Okay, good. I'm ready to mess that up. I'm happy to be here, the first person to mess that up. So let me dig in shortly here for a second and just kind of say that this is a whirlwind tour of TensorFlow.js, and the idea behind it is to be excited, energized, and interested. If you're like, hey, I don't even know what that is, well, then you're my target audience. If you're like, hey, I've seen AI do amazing things lately, but I don't know anything about that, you're my target audience. If you have a PhD in machine learning and you're working on like your 15th published paper, sorry, you'll probably find me very boring. So this is for web developers, this is for people who want to build cool and interesting things. So let me share my screen real quick and look at here. So share these, there we go. Actually, you know what? I'm going to share again, but I'm going to, I can pump the sound through this. So it works out fine anyway. So, all right, let's talk about TensorFlow.js. And for those of you who didn't hear that entire cool spiel, thank you so much, Becca, for letting everybody know. I am the CIO of a wonderful company called Infinite Red. I love to code in JavaScript quite often, including being a React Native core contributor. And then also I'm a Google developer expert in web and machine learning, which I think is the perfect combo methodology for TensorFlow.js. If you're interested in one or either of those kinds of things, I love being in both of them. So we give away lots of really cool stuff often on Twitter. So definitely follow me on Twitter. It's at GantLabord on Twitter. I think that you'll really enjoy a lot of the cool stuff that I tweet a lot of memes and funny jokes and stuff like that. So please give me a follow if you haven't already. You might recognize me from these crazy anime characters. I have a friend in Japan and she draws these cool chibi characters. So I have lots of stickers like this, believe it or not. And with a pandemic year, they're sitting here not doing anything. So if you are a sticker collector and you want some Gant stickers, that's my Twitter handle as well. That's another reason to go ahead and reach out to me and I'll get you some cool Gant stickers. So one of the things I want to kind of say here is that AI can be a really cool word to some people and really scary to others. We all need to be on the same page now. For me, when I first started learning about AI, I was like, okay, this is silly. I didn't like it because it seems so cool. You're sitting there, you're playing Street Fighter or whatever. And there's this invisible person next to you, this invisible character who's playing against you. Your Smash Brothers kind of characters fighting against something that's powered by artificial intelligence. And you're like, that's really cool. And then you say, I'm going to go learn how they do this. And then you're like, that's not so cool. I'm not excited about this anymore at all. Because like a lot of the algorithms and a lot of the research for building mini-max algorithms and stuff, it's very rote, it's very explicit, it works only in one particular place. And it's like, okay, you learned how to make checkers AI. Good luck with the rest of your life. You can't do it anywhere else, right? And it feels like you're constantly resolving this problem, and it's really difficult up until 2012, where there became this breakthrough of data training the AI. So you have data that's actually influencing what is coming out and writing these algorithms for you. And so this created the advent of deep learning or neural networks, where we were starting to see human-like or even superhuman-like performance, where we saw computers in 2015 surpass human capabilities in identifying what's inside of a photo. And now we've got this cool world where we can frog leap ahead of where we've been before, where you don't have to be able to name every genus and species of mushroom that you ever happen to walk across. You'd be like, oh, you don't have to be some master sort of like of identifying all these things. No botanists necessary. You can actually use your phone and all the kinds of cool characteristics. And then with 99.999% accuracy, identify that that is an edible thing, or it's a dangerous thing, or you should keep your pets away from it, or hey, this is poison ivy. All these cool things are coming into our world. And it's by us, the developers, that we're implementing and we're putting these things there, that we're able to do something that used to take people entire lifetimes in order to do. And that's what I think is like the coolest part about it, is like, do you want to be part of this new era where you can build things that have never been built before, or do we want to keep solving the same old problems with computer programming? And so I wanted to build something just to sort of illustrate that early on. I want to make sure that you're all enjoying yourselves. So I made this website called enjoyingthe.show. And I don't know, Becca, you can let me know if we are on a little bit of a delay, but if I want to, I'm going to pull up enjoying the show.
We're about
And then-
30-second delay.
30-second delay. All right, we'll should expect some people in 30 seconds. I want you to go, if you're watching this, go to enjoyingthe.show. And for joining the room, I want you to type VC for virtual coffee, VC. And then you're going to join the VC room. Now, I'm over here in the watch. I'm gonna join the watching room for VC. And so we'll just try this little fun experiment out real quick, and it's just to see if you're actually enjoying yourselves as we're kind of doing this talk. And I expect a delay. So you can see right now it says no one's in the room, and then you see that message went away. I mean, someone loaded the link, and right now it's loading a model, and it's actually asking for access to a camera. Now, it's okay that's asking access for your camera, because it's not sending your image to me. Your image is never leaving your machine right now. As a matter of fact, what's happening right now is your computer is identifying your facial expression and then just sending me whether you're happy or sad or neutral. So let me get everybody, just smile for me as much as you can, everybody. That's awesome. So much happiness kind of happening. So here we are in this virtual world. And what I love about this is that I'm able to see, I love somebody's making faces at it. Please make more faces. When we're here in this virtual world, and then I know it's a 30-second delay, so I probably won't keep this up the entire time, but I can kind of see my audience now, right? And that's happening through this facial sentiment analysis that's happening on your machine, and then on a server in real time, I'm seeing the results of all this over here. This is a really fun demo. Feel free to use this anytime you want for any of your talks, if you want, or if you do a virtual talk and there's no delay. This is a great opportunity for you to see what your audience is thinking about your talk at any given moment, whether or not there's somebody who's extremely angry or sad during your talk. And this is all using TensorFlow.js. On your side, on your machine, without ever actually going off to a server, it's just identifying your sentiment. But then it's taking that one string, happy, sad, whatever that is, and it is sending that off to a server. And then I'm just kind of pulling that all together into a pie chart right here, so we can see how the audience is actually doing. And you can create a room called VC or whatever you want to call it. This is just an open project that we did for Amplify Days, and it was a lot of fun to create. So thank you so much for everybody who loaded this stuff up. This is pretty fun. I hope you enjoy making faces. I looked like a complete fool when I was building this. I was sitting in airports just like making silly faces at the camera. But you can totally set this up for yourself. Pull up 2 webcams. Watch your own face. Watch anything else that's going on. Really fun stuff. So yes, I'm glad to see everybody's happy for the most part. There was one person very angry, which very nice. I'm glad I got that going. So yeah, you could build things just from your wildest dreams with this kind of stuff. So I'm pushing this whole thing into machine learning because we're in an age of data. They say data is the new oil. Of course, I don't know how well that analogy will age since we're trying to go solar and wind. But the cool thing about it is that I don't have to know how to write a facial sentiment analysis model. I just needed a bunch of labeled expressions in order to say, like, this is what someone who's happy looks like. This is what someone who's sad looks like. And then you train the model on that. And if we wanted to use this for all kinds of different places, it's data driven information. And then us as the coders, we can stick this in every product. There's tons of applications. I know you've been hearing about this cool stuff. It's writing music, it's figuring out prices, it's doing all kinds of other stuff. This is so cool. And if you talk to a PhD, what they like to say is that, yeah, good luck. You have to go get your master's at least, or in order to, understand this at any point. That is BS. But some of the PhDs are really cool about it. But for a developer, it's very simple. Data in, like the faces, data out, like the sentiment of those faces. Or maybe you're trying to identify the age of everybody. Or maybe you're trying to identify how many people have cool haircuts. When you're implementing these things, you're implementing some really fun stuff together, and it's just data in, data out. These are just functions. And a lot of times people will push you to online services for this stuff. And trust me, there's some amazing services that Amazon, Google, and Microsoft do. They can tell you all kinds of things about a photo. But TensorFlow.js doesn't depend on a service. It doesn't depend on all these microservices, because I think you can go a little too far where you kind of no longer have control over what it is that you're actually trying to build anymore. And I think that machine learning in JavaScript, because JavaScript for the past 7 years, at least by the Octaverse, has been the most popular, most ubiquitous programming language that exists for us to develop in, this is a great place for us to use this. And I'm sure people are frustrated by JavaScript and say that, oh, you can't do anything with that. This is the world where you build fun and interesting things and you share it. JavaScript is able to access the GPU, and we can do these things, and I can share them with you today, just like we shared that other thing. So let's get you excited about it. Here's an example case. I made a website called nickornot.com, which serves an important use for identifying whether or not Nicolas Cage is in a photo or not. This is key. Everybody needs this, because you never know if Nicolas Cage is inside your photos, creeping up on you and trying to steal your Declaration of Independence. It's just a fun idea, a fun application of some fun stuff there. Of course, Nick is constantly used in AI. I'm not sure why, but I do lean into that a bit. And I did do a presentation where using JavaScript, I was able to identify Nicolas Cage in the audience. And I did that for a talk. Let me show you the finale of that, because it's a lightning talk, so I don't have that much time, but I'll show you this. That was really fun. This is Matt Hargett holding a Nicolas Cage photo over his face for the finale of my talk at React Native U in 2018. It's a lot of fun. We pulled him up out of the audience and we set that up. It's a silly idea for a website, but there's some other fun characteristics that we can kind of dig into for this. I'm happy to talk about any of these projects in greater detail at any given time. But remember, my goal here is to get you things so that you can try this out and you can see what is possible today. I also built a website called TensorFlow.js. No, I didn't cheap out on the .com. It just rhymed if it's .co. So it's TensorFlow.js. It's easy enough to remember. So when you go to this website, you have an AI that's seen no tic-tac-toe games. whatsoever. It's never seen tic-tac-toe in its life. It doesn't understand how to play. So if you make the AI move, it moves terribly. But then you can teach it. You can play a game and say, play a little bit more like X. Play a little bit more like O. Be able to do this and that. And if you teach it well, you create an unbeatable AI in 5 or 6 games. If you teach it poorly, then it's got a lot more to learn. But it's a really fun. So on this website, this is open source as well. Everything I've shown you here is open source, 100% open source. And at the bottom left of TensorFlow tic-tac-toe.co is the source code link and a video of me sort of like walking you through it. If you want some more Gant in your life, you could go ahead and check that out. It's a really cool thing. And then you could download the model and build your own tic-tac-toe website. But if you're hungering for code a little bit, I do have a little code example here. Rock, paper, scissors, which is RPS-TFJS Netlify site. This rock, paper, scissors website shows you the code, and you train a rock, paper, scissor identifier directly inside your browser, and it shows you the code along the way. If it seems kind of alien to you, that's totally okay. When I first got into AI, I was like, I don't understand any of this, even worse than when I first tried to jump into it. But then I saw it's because it's been abstracted, so you can apply it to all these cool ideas. So it's pretty cool, and I'd be happy to show you. I have a course on the material. I have lots of blogs I've written about all these things. Happy to share all that stuff. And again, like I said, it's open source. This will walk you through some of the code. So if you check this out, I could tweet these slides out afterwards. So like I said, follow me on Twitter. So there's plenty more that I don't have time to talk about inside of something like a lightning talk. For one, I built this one project for the community to help people, small groups and organizations flag indecent content that gets uploaded to their servers. So if you have a conference and somebody is violating the code of conduct, you can have the AI actually identify not safe for work content and flag stuff for you, which is really nice. And it's really good for privacy as well, because the AI is only flagging stuff. It's not a human being digging into stuff and looking for that. That's nsfwjs.com. All the source code, all that's available and free. I've solved FizzBuzz with TensorFlow.js, which is the dumbest use of TensorFlow.js I think is quite possible. But it's pretty fun. If you ever go into a job interview and solve it with AI, I think they'd be pretty impressed. And generating poetry. I won a civic hackathon by bringing in and creating a blight cam so it can catch cars cars dumping stuff on a property. So that was the Baton Rouge civic hackathon. That was a lot of fun. And then I did one for my house called Working or Not, which identifies if I'm at my desk and this door is closed behind me, notify the people at the house that daddy's working. So I have plenty more ideas than I actually have time to do. And with a lightning talk, it's plenty more than we have time to talk about. So I know I'm going a little bit over. So I want to just kind of close this in here and say, machine learning does things that humans could do with a lot of data, with a lot of examples. And we're in the age of data. So the only thing we need now is what you would kind of do. And I need you to think in machine learning. And I think that with all the cool products, all the ideas out there, you could try TensorFlow.js. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. I have a course about it on academy.infinite.red. And then I also run a newsletter with AIFYI.com, which is a lot of fun. So plenty of information on these, lots more examples than I ever have time to show, but lots of fun stuff. Thanks so much for Infinite Riff for letting me constantly research and talk at conferences and talk to people about this cool stuff that we're passionate about and that we do consulting for. And that's my socials and my information. So go ahead and make sure to stay connected with me and let's check into this. Definitely don't hesitate to reach out to me. I will nerd out about this for way more than 15 minutes in the future.
All right. Thank you so much, Gant. This has been really great. I love everything that we learned. And I know somebody in the chat said, Gant just got me to make faces at my camera for the last 5 minutes. So if you've accomplished nothing else today, you got people to make faces at their camera, and that has brought us all much joy.
I do. I hope that the family members were around to wonder what in the world happened to you and what was wrong as you were sitting there just trying to make faces at it.
Yeah, I feel like my sixth grader school just went virtual, and I want to show all of the teachers this wonderful tool so they can have an idea of what's going on with those sixth graders. I don't think it would be the full happy pie chart, though.
I imagine as soon as kids can see what faces they're making, you might lose them. So that is the danger.
You lose them in one way, but you inspire them in another, right?
Right. They're ready for linear algebra, but they absolutely are not paying attention.
But that's okay. They'll get there. They'll be excited to go to class, I think, just so they can make faces. I don't know, maybe give them 5 minutes at the beginning of class. You can make faces at your camera, and then we'll get started. Is that or maybe it's incentive for the end of class. If you behave, you can make faces at your camera.
Yeah. Makes sense. And then you could just track them over the entire lesson to see when everybody is totally zoned out. You're like, oh, okay. Once I introduce this part in the lesson, everybody turns sad.
Yeah, that is actually a great teaching tool. When I taught, I think I would have liked to see that, especially online, right?
Yeah. That's not a bad idea. It's open source. Or actually, we could probably add something like that.
Yeah, so instead of teacher evaluations, you just have your students sit in front of the camera the entire time, and then it automatically evaluates the teachers.
And then you tie the content to a recommendation system.
That's
Kids
right.
like it when you mention, this or that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Look how old I am. You mention X, Y, or Z, and then you should recommend also.
Yep.
That's actually
exactly. We have just
amazing.
Changed the face of education forever. So
I don't have that kind of time. Someone else is going to have to use my stuff to change the face of education.
One day I'll get there. I'll start training my children now, and then maybe we'll do it. I've got 4 of them. That's a lot of brain power, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, I know that, lightning talks, they go pretty quick. They show you a lot of bells and whistles. Of course, there's always a little bit of hard work getting all these things kind of working. But I found that the most important thing, if I have just a short amount of time, is to have someone like you say an amazing idea that I've never thought of. Because that's where the fire starts. It's with those sparks, with everybody kind of looking at this and coming up with their own idea. I mean, when you know where the finish line is, it's just one step after another before you finish that race. And I think that's how I started. And I think that's what my goal is, to get everybody else started in the same way.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. I mean, I think that energy definitely comes through, and I'm very happy to have you here to bring that energy, and everybody else too. It's been a great day with lots of really great talks. And I know I feel inspired by everything that I saw, and I hope that we get a lot of brown bags after this. I know I definitely want to learn more. TensorFlow has been on my list since the very beginning. So
I've built so things I don't have in here because they're not as glamorous, but dog face finding, pet recognition. I'm working on a really cool project right now where you can draw, where it kind of the AI helps you in doing a crafting project. So the complicated artsy thing that I'm not good at, it figures out, and then I just kind of paint by numbers on my side. I'll be happy to show you all that when it's done.
That sounds amazing. So thank you again for being here with us. I think that this has been a great day, and I'm very excited to have you closing out our very first ever virtual coffee lightning talk session. So thanks for being here and doing that.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I am going to go ahead and wrap this up. We did a really great job of staying on schedule, which is, I don't know, I feel really excited about that, doing this for the very first time. I want to say like very, very special thank you to all of our speakers who did such a wonderful job today. We had really great look at a lot of topics, and I know there's a lot of chatter going on in the Slack and also in the live stream. So thank you all who were here and who participated via the chats. I think that there's going to be a lot of really great things that come out of these lightning talks. And I don't know, I feel pretty excited and like maybe we should do this again sometime. So if you're interested in that, if you want to see these again, please let us know. We look forward to continuing these discussions and for supporting our community members. Just a couple of reminders as we close out for the day. We're still running a monthly challenge, so I know you're all inspired right now. So you can do what I learned today, and you can talk about any of the talks that you saw here, and you can write a blog post about it. And then we can use that to try and hit our monthly challenge of 50,000 words. I am not sure where we are at right now because I have fallen a little behind on my blog posts for this week as well. As always, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to anyone on the leadership team. You can check that out on our website. If you go to virtualcoffee.io/members, the leaders are at the top there. We're always here to support you with any questions or comments or anything that you need to say. I want to thank everybody again who participated in Hacktoberfest. I think that one of the beautiful things about virtual coffee is that one event has flowed into the next. And so we learned so much planning and growing with Hacktoberfest, and that enabled us to do these lightning talks today. We're really looking forward to all of the cool things that are coming in the future, everything that we have coming next. And I was just thinking yesterday, I think we're in 4 months, we're going to hit a year old. So I'm not really sure what we're going to be doing for that, but I am super excited to see what we end up coming up with as a community. I just want to say a couple extra special thank yous. I know that Kirk and Dan have been making sure that everybody is ready to come into their talk. So I really appreciate all of their work in making sure that this thing stays on time and that everything transitions pretty seamlessly. So thank you for that. Also, like one more extra thanks to Dan, who has been instrumental in getting all of the tools that we need to run these events. So I know that he's worked really hard on making sure that things have gotten up and running with Hacktoberfest and the podcast and this year too. So I want to make sure that we recognize all the effort that he's put in. And a special thank you to all of the members of our leadership team for always supporting all of the projects that we're doing here at Virtual Coffee. Very happy to have Sarah, Dan, Brian, and Kirk on my side as we move forward and work on these things and build this community together. So thanks everyone for being here. I look forward to seeing what comes out of this and hopefully doing this again. So have a great day.